So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the panel discussion. We thought that we would just start off by doing a quick demo of the help desk in case anyone hasn't used it yet or wants a refresher. So I'm Alin, I'm the administrator of the help desk. And this is, you should be able to see the screen now. So this is what it looks like when you get to the help desk. To get there, you can either go to nowdigital.landback.org, or if you're familiar with the Landback site, you can also link there from the Northern Ontario Women or the Now page. So when you get here, basically the way that it's set up is you can either browse the articles that we have for you. So all of our experts who are joining us today have created content specifically for small businesses on these different topics. So we have a section for digital marketing, e-commerce, website management, and SEO. So you can kind of just read through, see what articles are helpful for you and your business, and check out some of that content. We also have the previous webinars that we've hosted for the help desk recorded, and we have notes on them as well. So kind of the key highlights and what time of the video you can start watching to get more of that behind the detail from the experts. So those are all here if you wanted to click on those. If you're having trouble with kind of figuring out how to navigate the help desk or how to use it, there's an article here that just shows screenshots and kind of a step-by-step guide for the help desk as well. And then this is kind of the fun part up at the top here, where you can connect with all the experts that we have on the panel today. So if you have a specific question about your business or you're running into issues and you want help troubleshooting something, you can click on the new support ticket button here, and you'll just have to fill out a little bit of information about your business and then submit the ticket. And then all of our experts that you see on the panel today will be either them or someone on their team will be helping to respond to those questions and helping you troubleshoot with your business. So it's a free service for women-owned and women-led businesses in Northern Ontario. And we encourage you to take advantage of all of those options that are there. So whether it's just kind of reading through the content or actually connecting with these experts and getting some help with your businesses. So that's just a quick kind of run through of what the help desk looks like and what it's for. And there's new content going up there consistently. So as we get questions in, we're kind of creating new content about those topics, things that we think will be helping the businesses. So that's kind of the help desk, but let's get into the panel discussion for today. So we thought it would be helpful just to kind of get everyone live and answer some of the questions that we've been seeing and that some of you have sent over the past week. So we're just gonna kind of go through some of the questions, get some answers from the experts in their different areas, and then hopefully it'll kind of help you get some answers from those different perspectives. So some of the questions have kind of implications for digital marketing or SEO or e-commerce. So so we'll kind of see from their different perspectives what they think about all those answers. So I'm gonna just let all of the experts introduce themselves so we can kind of go through. We'll start with Michael from Commerce Dynamics.
Sure, thanks, Lynn. So yeah, Michael from Commerce Dynamics. We are an e-commerce platform company, and we build e-commerce programs for a lot of kind of global brands. But I know this is about small businesses. I'm also kind of fairly familiar with helping small businesses kind of launch e-commerce programs as well. So excited to be here and have this conversation with everybody.
Awesome, thank you. And then we'll go to John from Local SEO Search.
Sorry about that. Yeah, my name is John Vong. I run an agency called Local SEO Search. Been doing it for about 8 years. We specialize on helping service-based business owners, small, medium size, across Canada, and really just helping them become more visible on search, in particular Google, dominating the Google My Business, the map pack, as well as below organic. So hopefully I can support and answer any questions that you bring up.
Awesome, thank you. And then last we have Doug from Search and Gather.
Hi, I'm the co-founder of Search and Gather. We're a paid digital marketing agency. So meaning where John focuses on the organic listings, we focus more on the Google Adwords and also paid social, meaning that you have a budget and you're paying for the ads that are going in. and then tracking that back to actual revenue to your businesses. So we specialize in a lot of small businesses, startups, anyone who has a service or a product to sell. We help really navigate how you could use these paid advertisements to really turn that into revenue.
Awesome. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. And I just wanted to note that if anyone who signed in has questions as we go through, feel free to type them either in the chat or in the Q&A section at the bottom of the Zoom screen. So I know some of you, when you registered for this, did send your questions in then, but if you have anything that kind of comes up through the discussion, feel free to add more questions in and we'll get to as many as we have time for today. All right, so let's jump in. So the first question that we had was from someone, and it was kind of about online presence. So they were saying with so many options kind of between social media pages and a website, all these different ways that you can kind of promote and connect with your customers, it's difficult to maintain them all and also to choose which one's best to promote your business. So they were asking for some recommendations on kind of using a website versus just social media or just a Facebook page or both. So yeah, so maybe if we want to start with Doug on that, just kind of from the social media side, and then we can get John's perspective from SEO.
Yeah, so this is a question that actually comes up quite a bit across my desk, especially with someone who's just starting out. And the answer really is kind of a moving target depending on the business that you have, but it is best practice, especially if you're running any paid channels, that you would have a web presence, and whether that be a landing page or a website and some social media around. But what we like to look at is more of what are the objectives, and what I would encourage you to look at is where are your customers and how they're going to engage with you. The one kind of there's two sides of the coin. So on a paid side where you're running advertisements, having your Facebook page is necessary, but you don't need to necessarily have it really populated because you're going to be shooting that traffic outside to it. And the reason why we do that a lot of the times with landing pages is that you want to have either a conversion point, whether that they're buying a product, but if they're going to contact you, you want to have a form that's also going to go to a CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce to also manage all of those people that are coming in. If you were only to just have a Facebook page, it's not going to have the capabilities of how you could optimize your campaigns on a paid side. So I would always look at it, and I would love if John came in on this as well, because there's a lot of SEO implementations on this as well. But yeah, so for the paid side, definitely a web presence. It is important to have the page because you can have an ad account without having a page. But definitely a web presence is both really important, especially when it comes down to tracking the campaigns and making more money. But yeah, I think I'd flip it over to John too, because there's a lot of SEO stuff on this side too that I think he'll have a good perspective on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Doug. So like what Doug said, understanding what your customers are ultimately looking for, right? And how do they navigate and search for your product and service? So you being a e-commerce site, are they product-based? And if it is, maybe Instagram makes sense. Maybe it is a Shopify site, or maybe it is Facebook ads, retargeted, understanding what your customer's journey looks like. But that web presence of that asset piece of your own website, if you plan on being in business for a little bit longer than, I would say, 3 years, 10 years, I would say buy and own your own asset, build your own website, and dominate it. Because once you start becoming a thought leader, an expert, or a brand, it becomes more your own traffic. It becomes more your brand. And that's ultimately what people want if you're running a business, right? You want to own a lot of things. And with paid, you're kind of distracted. You're jumping in, right? With the frame of mind of Facebook, people strolling, and they're going to have an ad that catches their attention. With Google, for instance, it's more about people are in control. They're seeking out a product and service. They're in control, and they're further along the buying cycle. And with that in mind, the queries that people are typing in probably has some sort of intent focus, right? Informational, navigational, transactional, depending on what kind of keywords they're searching. But it generates a lot more journey type traffic that are higher ticketed and much more convertible, I feel, with a proper optimized website that is ranked on Google.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that as well, there's a level of legitimacy, especially if someone is searching for it and coming from a Google search is and as I look at conversion rate optimization, it's always anxiety and friction of ease of use. You need to have that legitimacy that some people aren't going to be comfortable contacting you through just a Facebook page because it may seem like it's not as professional, or it could be, for other words, a scam too. So having that presence and having that legitimacy is really important to have that web build. And you'll see it converts a lot better, and you're going to have a lot more capabilities, and you're not at the mercy of that source as well. If Facebook goes and changes something, you have to change with.
Yes, that's a big thing.
It's a really big thing. So yeah.
I'm going to add something, Doug, where if you plan on understanding your customer's journey, what I mean by that is, do they land on your website first, or do they go on social? Then what do they go to? Do they land on your Instagram account? Do they check you out with reviews on a trusted pilot site, or do they go to check out the competitors? Understand they go through like a 14-stage touch point, right? With multiple asset pieces. They're going to check out your reviews, reputation, case studies, testimonials, check out all your Facebook feeds, Google My Business posts. All these things are more about vetting you. And the more you're consistent, you own the asset, and you're constantly publishing relevant information that the customer is seeking out, it becomes more of a stickiness factor. And this plays in conjunction with what Doug does and what we do. I mean, we're different, but if you think about what your customers are ultimately seeking out, that's the most important thing.
For sure.
Yeah, and just to kind of add some, I guess, context to the question, it looks like, so it's a tourism business, and the bookings are mostly done through Airbnb. So I don't know if, John, you can kind of speak to that, like using a service like Airbnb for booking rather than having a booking plugin or something on your own website.
Yeah, I would say Airbnb, Amazon, leverage the traffic that's existing on their medium and platform for you to compete, building your own website to then rank for keywords. You're not going to rank to compete with an Airbnb because there's already people, thousands of them daily, that are seeking out using Airbnb and some of these other hotel sites, right? Booking.com, etc. Yes, you're paying them a fee, commission, but they have so much traffic that it probably costs you more to try to build up your own SEO to compete with them.
Yeah. On the paid side as well. Really, the one kind of barrier issue is that Airbnb, because they run their system, it's really tough to get tracking codes on there, and also analytics. So if you were to run paid campaigns going to Airbnb, you're going a little bit blind. You may see an uptick at that point where you can, if someone is searching for that, but I would suggest bumping it through Airbnb, and there's some advertising like sponsored areas that you could do within it. Start there, move to AdWords or something later. That would be my recommendation to start off with as well.
Great. Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I can see that the person who had sent that question is tuned in. So hopefully that helped to answer it. But if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to put those in the chat or send it as in the Q&A.
Yeah, or send me a ticket.
Yeah. Yep.
I get more in.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, if you do have any follow-up questions, just add those in. And then I'm going to go on to the next question here. So someone just sent this through in the Q&A. What are the top tips to make sure my website comes up when specific terms are searched on Google? So I guess, John, we'll go to you for that one.
So there's over 200 signals, and there's a lot of criteria that you have to look into. You trying to do it yourself, I don't know what your skill set is. So it's all based on what the competition, what's the keywords, what does the landscape look like? Because if you're a service based in a small town, it's a lot easier to compete than someone in Toronto that's a dentist, right? So we have to take a look at what your state is in terms of your website, and then who your competitors are. We kind of do an analysis and kind of benchmark you on figuring out what needs to be done to kind of improve your ranking and improve your authority. And that goes, it's hard to explain. There's 200 signals. So I would say send in a ticket. Let's take a look at your website. Let's take a look at your keywords that you want to rank for and give you more of an in-depth analysis, because with that just broad question, I don't even know where to start. Sorry.
Yeah. Another thing is you could always dabble with Google AdWords as well. So Google Ads will shoot you to the top in the top 4 positions. And we don't do SEO, but what we do love is actually the findings that we can find from these keywords. And what you want to find is, and I find in SEO is, sometimes the businesses have keywords in mind that they're like, I need to rank for this. I need to rank for this. With Google AdWords, you can test different kind of long tail keywords and maybe more valuable keywords. And you can track that down to whether either they're buying your product or actually contacting you to hire your service. So we almost work in conjunction where on our side, you are able to identify the most valuable keywords through Google AdWords, and you're buying that spot. And the way that it's charged, it's an auction. So you have to, you're in competition with other businesses of how much you'll actually pay for that click. But what's really important when you go through that exercise is thinking about SEO too, of now that I'm ranking for these keywords and I'm paying for these keywords, if you're making a lot of money off certain keywords, then you might want to put that into your SEO strategy, knowing that those are your most valued keywords as well. But yeah, there's a lot of signals. So if you want immediate results, you will have to pay with Google through Google Ads. But then the long-term game and the really lucrative game is on the SEO side, when you could start getting that traffic for free.
Exactly. And I think everyone wants to own the equity of the first page, but it's not as easy as everyone thinks.
Yes.
And Google doesn't want it to make it easy for anyone, because they want trusted websites to be on the first page. It's like trying to connect the users to trusted websites, and you have to earn your way there. And just like any business, if you're just starting off, are you going to be the best business in your town or city? It takes time to build up that authority. It takes time to understand how to run a proper business. So it's the same thing with Google. You have to understand what's going on in their end for you to position yourself digitally.
Yeah, and then another kind of aspect. So there's another question that came through about SEO specifically, and looking at it from like a bilingual perspective. So in Northern Ontario, there are a lot of businesses that would be catering to French customers. So yeah, can you speak to that, like how it kind of changes depending on the language that you're looking at, or the bilingual function?
So we just picked up a client that also does French, some manufacturing one. And it's interesting because here in Canada, we've only kind of worked with a lot of English speaking kind of native language sites. The good thing is there's a tab that actually auto translates for a lot of sites like Google Translate. The challenge, however, is it has to be conversational. And when you click on that tab, it's going to translate based on English, and it might not be the same kind of tone as if you were to speak in French. So I would say if you're good at speaking French or having a blog writer or someone to transcribe to make it more natural, do it that way versus trying to just use Google Translate, because again, it's based on Google to make it match someone that's a user seeking out the service. So if it's more natural speaking, it makes more sense and it'll probably rank you better than trying to just auto Google Translate.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, so let's go on to another question that we had come in here. So someone was asking, like, what's the best platform to host with? So I'm assuming that this meant for a website. So maybe we can start with Michael and just kind of speak to from an e-commerce standpoint, and then we can talk kind of more generically about just websites in general.
Yeah, certainly. I'm glad that I can be part of this party now. It's been the Doug and John show so far. So, I mean, if you're looking at an e-commerce platform, the name, especially in Canada, right, for small and medium-sized businesses, Shopify, right? They have made things so easy. They have tons of content online in terms of how, someone who's just starting an e-commerce can set up their site literally in days. So I think first and foremost, if you're looking to set up your e-commerce site and host that, Shopify is responsible. You should take a look at them. I mean, but it also depends on your business, right? So are you using Square, to collect payment outside of, in person? If you're doing that, Square also has an e-commerce option, right, to make it super easy and simple. So I think there's a lot of parameters that you need to consider, especially kind of what your business is doing right now. But if I had to give one answer that you should look at is definitely Shopify.
Awesome. Thank you. That's helpful. And then maybe, John, can we get you to speak to like those different platforms or ways to build a website, I guess, and how they impact on your SEO? Like if you're using a templated kind of builder versus WordPress versus like other options, or how that helps with your ranking.
Yeah, definitely. So depending on how competitive your space is, we deal with a lot of lawyers, dentists, chiro, physio, pretty competitive in a large market. So I always say own your website, build it from scratch, hard code it. Yes, you can embed a theme, but then you have to go through and purchase your DNS, you have to purchase your hosting, but you're owning everything, because then you get full admin rights. When you go with a Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, GoDaddy website builder, you're limited in terms of the full backend access to make the proper, I guess, technical changes, because they sell SEO packages, which are their revenue stream, right? But they're not as technical as someone that, like, when you compete on the same level, I would say. Because if you're in a small town, yes, go Shopify, Wix, Squarespace. It's a lot easier to rank because probably not everyone owns their own website. But when you're working with personal injuries that have dedicated SEO teams internally competing, and everyone's hyper competitive with their own hard code developers and a whole SEO team, it makes sense for us to own the website. And yes, hosting, if you're a big company, I would say go Google Cloud, go Amazon. If you're smaller, maybe go GoDaddy, go, stuff that's affordable. You can go shared hosting, you could go dedicated. Depends on your bandwidth, depending on capacity, depending on what you need. So again, it all depends, I would say. But you have to understand your situation and where you want to go with it.
Yeah, so maybe the person who had kind of sent that question in, it might be worth if you put a ticket through and kind of ask those specific questions and then give a bit of background about your business. We can kind of help and give you some more specific recommendations based on your industry and your business. All right, so the next question that we have is, I have a physical location. So how do I know if my digital ads are helping my business? How should I measure this? So I'm going to pass that one off to Doug.
That is a loaded one. Omnichannel is definitely always a challenge when you have the physical store, but there are some tips and tricks that you could do. Do we have any more information on that business, like what kind of business it is, or?
We don't know.
Perfect. No worries. With digital marketing, you are usually looking for an interaction or something that you could track on page, that you could go back to your platforms and say, hey, this is a win, whether that's submitting a lead, or where that's, calling, but or buying a product. If you're looking to drive foot traffic just into the store, what I find is really important is kind of also running some kind of promotion or maybe discount code or something that is only available through that channel, that that you could control and then cross tabulate and see how well that promotion's doing. So online only deals where you are driving traffic in, and we've done this for a lot of small businesses in Thunder Bay, some in Scriber. So yeah, and it worked really, really well because we knew that code was only there. Could that code be shared throughout the internet? Absolutely. But if it's driving the foot traffic in and you're seeing that raise in sales, it's really great. One thing to also mention is I mentioned calls. So there is ways to track call tracking. So if it's more of where you want to drive people to your physical location, but the interaction's usually starting with a phone call, there's call-only campaigns that you could run on Google Ads, but there's also call tracking metrics that will actually capture. Let's say you're running a Facebook campaign. It will actually, when they call, it records that call, but also tracks it back to the campaign. So you know that call came from Facebook, that call came from TikTok, that call came from any other platform that you're coming from. And it's really important to track that. because then you're able to see if you are closing more business to that physical location. So call tracking does work really well. Other than that, you have to get a little creative, and where I would have promo codes. I've had run promotions where they have to say something at the till that's only announced on their Facebook ads that come through, and you do have to manually kind of track that. Getting more advanced, there are POS systems that can run back from that, but I think that's a little too advanced going through. Some stuff was Square, but it's still in its infancy. So I would start small with a promo code, kind of something that you know that is only available online, and you do get to have a gauge of how well that campaign's doing for you.
And I'll probably add to this as well
Yeah.
with tracking. So I used to work at Yellow Pages, and we tracked really well with unique telephone numbers, understanding how many impressions, how many click-throughs, what's the follow-through. Very similar to a website, your Google My Business. You can put UTM codes to monitor the insights on the Google My 3-pack, as well as your website, and following the whole behavior to actually converting, which is the form or phone call. So you can actually track a lot. However, it all depends on your goals, right? Like depending on what you're spending, if you have multi-channel, omni-channel advertising, yes, tracking is very pivotal. But if you're only advertising on Google Ads, like you kind of know where your advertising is going, right? If you're focused only on SEO, then there's no point changing your telephone number, call rail and changing numbers. It might confuse your audience and users more so when things start changing. So you have to look at like, what's ultimately the goal, right? Is it to figure out what works, like advertising, or a better user experience? And if you have a better gauge with your customer, I mean, ultimately, as long as it's good ROI, just continue with it.
Yeah, and submit a ticket, and I could get into more details on that one and kind of look at the full funnel as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I put in the chat the link in case anyone wants to do that right now. Kind of like I was saying, you can submit a ticket and give a bit of background about your business and then get specific recommendations for you. All right, so our next question is, how can I get my products displayed on Instagram? So I'm assuming that they're talking about like the Instagram shop. So maybe we'll go to Michael for this one.
Sure. Yeah. So when thinking about that, there are probably two ways you can do it. One being directly within Facebook. And again, if you submit a ticket, we can give you the very specific directions how to do it. There's tons of instructions by Facebook online, but using your Facebook account and setting up a Facebook commerce account, you can set up your products directly in there. And then when you go share an image, you can tag that image on Instagram for that product, right? So that'd be one way. If you're already running an e-commerce store, and you're likely, assumingly using Shopify or BigCommerce or Squarespace platforms like that, they have direct connectors as well, right? And that's likely the easier way to do it if you have those platforms already going, because you have all your products set up in your e-commerce store, the titles, the descriptions, the prices. If you use that connector, it'll suck all those products into your kind of Facebook account, and then you can list it from there as well. So depending where you're at, what you have going on, you can do it directly, like I said, or hopefully the simpler way is through your kind of e-commerce platform. Right. And again, if you send in a ticket, we can kind of guide you to the specific instructions on how to do that.
Perfect. Thank you. So we've got some questions about kind of how do you find out how many people are coming to your site and how many are actually making purchases. So we can probably get that from a couple perspectives, but maybe we'll start with Doug on that one.
Yeah, I'm a tracking junkie. So really the best way to look at that is it's great because they're both free tools, is Google Analytics and then also Google Tag Manager. So let me explain the difference between the two. So Google Analytics will tell you a lot of information about who's visiting, but then they also have really great tools of e-commerce tracking to actually track the sales and actually see how well you're converting that through the funnel. It'll also show you cart abandonment. So if someone added to the cart and they happen to leave, and gives you a full overview of everyone who's coming. Now, I will caveat that with it's a trending tool. So it's not always going to be 100% accurate, but it's accurate enough to make decisions on how well you're performing on the system. What I like to do, if you are using a system like BigCommerce or Shopify, is kind of using a mesh between the two data to actually see where your source of truth is. Because your Shopify is never going to lie about the revenue coming in. It's always nice to cross-tabulate it. So analytics is where the data is actually shown and where you could actually kind of view where it's coming from source media, meaning if it's coming from Google, if it's coming from Bing. Bing's still a thing. There's 20% of traffic that comes through, but also Facebook and Instagram. So you're able to get a great gauge on how well that's doing. And if you need help setting up analytics, submit a ticket. I could help you on that side. Google Tag Manager is also really, really important because it makes a container where you could add certain tags or pixels or source codes to enhance your tracking, where maybe you don't always have to talk to your developer. You don't have to be bugging Michael all the time, to be throwing on tags all the time. So you can manage that without having to be a developer. It's also, it could get as advanced of going right into the data layer and pulling, transaction values and going back to Facebook or your sources. But Google Analytics is your best bet. There's a lot of tools out there that are maybe more paid, like Aribi is really coming out there with kind of more funnels. I would suggest and recommend running with Google Analytics. And if you could understand that, you could understand so much more. And again, we're here to help. Even if you want to jump on a call and we could run you through analytics, happy to do so. I could throw it to the team too if there's anything else you guys want to add.
No, I think that's good. The only thing I would add is yeah, it can get confusing, especially for a small business who's kind of running around doing a gazillion different things on how to set up those specific tags or applications, right? So again, depending on what service you're using, send a ticket in. We can help you with the setup side. I think Doug is a great resource to help you kind of read the data and understand what you're getting from the data as well. So I'll just throw that in there.
Absolutely. And that's a great idea to add some more content into the Help Center on that one. So I'll make the commitment on my side to throw some more on Google Tag Manager and also analytics.
Great.
Yeah, that would be good. And that's a good point. I just put a link in the chat too of the article that we do have up on the help desk about getting started with analytics. And we also have an overview of Google Analytics there. So if anyone's kind of intimidated or trying to figure out how to start with it, there's some articles that kind of help walk you through that. And then, yeah, like Doug said, he can kind of help you specifically with your business and what you're looking to do.
The great thing about analytics, just to add, you can't break anything in there. So play around with it. I think I always try to let my clients know that are maybe just starting out with it. You can't break anything in analytics really, because it's just sucking in the information. Maybe if you're doing goals, but it's all fixable. So, like kind of explore and kind of learn from there. Maybe I'm just a nerd and I find it fun, but I think you'll find it fun too, because you get those insights that kind of come in. So don't be intimidated whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I've played around in there a lot, and you almost feel like the amount of information you can get in there is incredible. Like just looking through all the levels and where people are coming from on the map, and like the live information too. It's pretty fascinating to look at. Okay, so the next question I think will be specifically for John mostly, but how do I know which keywords I should be using to target for SEO?
That's definitely a really good question. Keyword research is very important. But the most important thing is like understanding your customers and understanding what they really want. The products and services are pretty much standard, but the journey behind that, there's so many different parameters and questions that people are going to go through to derive from a service like a dentist, right? There's teeth cleaning, there's endodontist, orthodontist, all these different terms, and then variations of terms. Then there's semantic keywords. There's a lot of, I guess, research involved, but you have to provide substance. You have to provide content that's rich, that embeds a lot of, I guess, variations within each service page and blog. So it's a kind of hard question to answer, but I would say I need more perspective of what's going on in your specific case. There's a lot of tools out there as well. Like we use keyword tool IO, which is great. Like Google AdWords is great insights, but the challenge with a lot of these tools is they give you a range of 0 to 10, 10 to 100. And as a small business, it doesn't really help. It doesn't give you exact metrics onto like how many people are actually searching for, you know, the long tail, short tail kind of queries, because they're going to batch into like a broad phrase, right? So I would say always focus on your customers, always focus on their journey, understanding them and answering their questions and provide value. Once you do that more, you're going to become more of a thought leader in your industry.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of thinking this like from the perspective of a small business owner. Like if I was just kind of starting out with a new business and I'm trying to decide what words to use for that, like would I go to a competitor's website and look at what words they're using on there, or would I like go actually do like surveys and ask my customers like what are things you would search for if you're looking for this on Google? Like do you have any like concrete kind of tips for people of like when they're just starting out with it, like
Yeah,
how to get an idea?
Yeah, definitely. When you're starting off, Google everything. And there's actually a drop down of some of the most popular searches. People are actually searching for a very broad term like that. And then, yes, there's a lot of sniffing tools. We use SEMrush, which is great to really do a competitive analysis, right? Digging of, and we use Ahrefs as well, which gives you way more keyword links and tools, right? Like there's tools out there, but they're all usually paid. And for someone that's starting off, it might not be worth it at that time. I would say, you know, try your best, look at your competitors, maybe 3 or 5 of them, go through a lot of their pages, services and products, do some competitive analysis, insights, pricing, understand what they're doing and how they're ranking, and then try to put together a plan to go over after a lot of their similar keywords, but differentiate yourself. What's your unique selling proposition? How do you, you know, prevail, give more depth, right? Substance, personalization, like all this stuff matters when you're trying to differentiate yourself from your competitors anyways.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And yeah, I think just having some of those tips of like, if you're just starting out or if you're just getting into the world of SEO, and I know like myself as a small business owner, it can be very overwhelming trying to figure out like where to start or how to make your business stand out. So I think that's helpful just to, yeah, give people an idea of what to do in the beginning. Okay, so one of the other questions was, as a service provider, how can I use e-commerce? So we'll go to Michael for that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think from, you know, whether you're, you know, a hairstylist or something, you know, you're doing nails or whatever, it's, you know, it's not the easiest thing to do. I think what I've seen from other people and other people similar in that industry, they've kind of used e-commerce as a secondary revenue channel, right? So it's not your primary, obviously, cutting hair and doing nails. That's where you're going to make most of your money. But you know, if you're doing those services, you're likely using products, right, during the experience, right? So whether it's shampoo or certain nail polish, so you can consider using the e-commerce channel to sell those products yourself, right? Be that source. People who go in, they'll like it and want to look for that more. A lot of brands are doing that, or a lot of service providers are using e-com to sell these kind of secondary or these products they use as a secondary revenue driver. You know, another way, which is a little bit more work, I guess, you know, comes to mind is that can you create a product out of your service, right? So if you're a teacher or you do makeup, can you create classes that you can sell online, bundles that you can sell online? So that's obviously a lot of time and a lot of commitment, but I think if you can commit to that, you can kind of, once you're done, create that revenue channel that'll just, you know, as people buy, will keep kind of creating that passive income almost for you, right? So those are two kind of ideas off the top of my head. But again, understanding the type of business, knowing what you do now, certainly we can provide some further recommendations.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so there are a couple specifically kind of about social media here. So the one was, can you recommend any tools that will help me post more efficiently on all my social media channels? So I know as a business owner, you have all these different channels, you want to keep them all updated. Just some ideas of like how to do that efficiently from one or couple tools.
Yeah, I think the leader in the space would probably be Hootsuite. Hootsuite's amazing. You could manage multiple channels throughout there. You could schedule your posts. It's the best I've seen out there. If you're going a little bit more ahead on things, you could also check out a company called Heyorka, which also does a lot of approvals if you have multiple locations, and it works there, and you could also get approvals through it as well. But Hootsuite, nothing really touches that one. It's they're kind of, I would say, the leader in the space, and I don't know if anyone else has anything to add, but Hootsuite, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I use for my business. And I find it very easy to use and very helpful for that, for sure. It saves a lot of time doing it all in one place and being able to schedule. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. I thought what might be a good way to kind of wrap things up is just to kind of talk through from your different perspectives and your different kind of industries that you're working in, what changes you've seen as a result of COVID, or how that's kind of impacted the space. Because I know a lot of business owners obviously are living and breathing that every day, and hopefully at some point we're going to be coming towards the tail end of it. But I think right now people are still kind of in the thick of it, trying to adapt and survive it. So maybe we can just speak to, I know it's kind of changed a lot of the digital space, people just using e-commerce and social media a lot more for their business, but maybe we can just kind of hear from each of you your thoughts on that, or any kind of recommendations you have kind of COVID specific. So maybe we'll start with Michael on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer to that is that e-commerce has just blown up since COVID, right? I think, like you said, Alan, people have had to, especially small businesses in small towns, have to shut their physical location, shut their doors, and have had to pivot to be able to make money and do it digitally or online. So I think just the idea of people opening up e-commerce shops, dramatic increase. I think people have been creative with how to still service their customers through e-commerce, whether that's like buy online and pick up in store. So the kind of omni-channel ways to purchase and sell items. What I think is interesting, though, I think some brands who've been creative enough to do some growth and pivoting during COVID have seen success with some of their pivots, and I think that's actually going to continue on right after COVID as well. So I know this is a Toronto example, but it could be an example in a small town too, where a pizza shop has started a pizza subscription service, and I know that's been hugely popular during COVID, and there's no reason why, if they've set up that infrastructure, can continue that post COVID as well, right? So I think the cool part of COVID, yes, it's really, really crummy and a lot of business has been impacted, but I think a lot of new ideas have come out of it, and I think they'll stick post COVID as well. So I know your question was like, what happened during COVID and what may happen after. I think it'll be interesting to see what sticks, for sure, from an e-commerce standpoint.
Yeah, and it's nice to see some of the kind of light in all of this, and the positive in that e-commerce has grown and has created other opportunities for businesses. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then, John, I don't know specifically with SEO, like how that would have changed. I imagine it's more important than ever for people to be able to kind of get their customers to find them online. But yeah, I can hear from you on that.
Yeah, definitely. I deal with a lot of service clients. Yes, it's impacted definitely, because a lot of people just can't meet people in person, right? So the journey is taking a little bit longer. People are spending a lot more time vetting businesses. So the importance of being there when people are ready, and then navigating them with substance, with reference, multi-channel assets. It's so important to sustain the downfall of what's going on, right? Like COVID has really hurt a lot of businesses, and it's going to be a pent-up demand. There's going to be a lot of people seeking out services and want to get out, right? So it's like positioning. SEO is all about positioning. And if you understand the importance of being relevant when people are ready to buy and being an option for them, it's going to really bode you well for the future. So I always say, like, stick with it, because it does take a little bit more time than paid. But when you do dominate and start owning space, the equity on that first page, you're going to get a lot more traffic, engagement, and higher conversion rate than any other form of media channel. But of course, you're going to be waiting for it to happen, right? It's not going to happen instantaneously like paid social or paid Google. it's the different type of customer as well who clicks on paid versus someone that's in control seeking out product or service. So it's a different type of person. And usually it's someone that's more savvy as well, someone that understands that someone's not paying and therefore they're in control. So I feel with pandemic, just understanding your customers, what they're going through, and positioning yourself with good content, relevant processes that you've taken in, updating all your asset pieces with consistency, like all that is so critical, as well as owning your database. If you have an email list, if you have any form of multi-channel, just keep them engaged. Running webinars, Zoom meetings, newsletters more frequently, just engage with them, text messaging. It's so important to make sure that they are still knowing that you're around when things open up, because they're loyal, right? People want to stick with the community leaders, right? Businesses. So if you can all support one another and just educate and inform people, SEO is going to be a great tool if done right.
Yeah, no, that's some great advice and some good points about it kind of being more of the long game, where you're kind of putting those things in place and tweaking it and building it. And like over time, you'll see the results of working on your SEO, but it may not be an overnight thing. So for people to kind of know that going in will hopefully alleviate some frustration. All right, let's hear from you, Doug.
Yeah, COVID has created, I think, a lot of opportunities for digital marketing, but there's a lot of catch up. There's a lot of people where they didn't need it before because they had their foot traffic, they had their radio ads, they had people coming in where they needed to set up shop really quick, take online orders. And I've seen some great success with it, but there is panic. And unfortunately, with everyone moving in to digital marketing and wanting to pay for traffic, it creates competition, which is driving up the price. So where I've seen with that panic, it's really it's super crucial that you do it responsibly and make sure that tracking is in place, but also you're not, especially for something like Google Ads, you're not just paying for number one position or max clicks. You're actually looking for conversions. There's a smart way to do it, and I really love this opportunity that I could help guide some of these members to really do it smart, because I will say Google and Facebook and all of these sources, when you start giving them money, they're great at taking your money. They can spend that budget as quickly as possible. And I think a lot of people who have just jumped in and tried to pour money at the problem and having to move online and get that traffic, unfortunately, they haven't seen the results. So it's really taking a step back and planning through it, because right now it is more expensive with Google Ads being an auction. With more businesses trying to fight for that space, they're willing to pay more. And with Facebook, especially with there's only a certain amount of inventory, especially in a smaller town, to go through, they're going to start showing preference to the one that's getting more engaged. So that comes down to your creative. So it's really what I've seen in COVID is there has been a mass panic of, oh my God, I need to do this now, and maybe I'm a little bit behind. And I think the people that I've seen really win have kind of calm down a little bit, start small, and as long as you can track it, then you could optimize it, but don't go and spend a lot of money. I've seen a lot of people just try to throw money at the problem right in these platforms, and unfortunately it's they could spend it. So it's really just, I would say, take a step back, understand your customer, but also make sure that you have everything in place, good tracking, good website, everything's within there, just to do it a lot slower and responsible. Because even now, I still have clients that, oh my God, I need this and this and this, and I'm really behind. It's just, keep your wallets a little bit closer and don't just go spending on the platforms really quick, because I've seen that. Coming out of it, I think everyone's going to be on a little bit more of an equal playing field. I mean, digital is something that the internet fad is not going away, and it is how people compare, review, and find new products and services within their town. I think it's, if anything, COVID's made it undeniable that you need that presence, and you need a full mix around a great website, good SEO, a paid strategy. And I think that we're all going to have better businesses coming out of it, especially when we're a little bit more back to normal.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, very good insight. And I think too, for small businesses, there has been a decent amount of funding out there for small businesses to help them get online. So a lot of people are doing it really quickly, and kind of overwhelmed by, yeah, how to create that digital presence. So yeah, that's some good advice to kind of like take a step back and just think through it properly and get things set up well for the future, not to just do it now, but have it set up well for the long term. So yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, yeah, thank you all for joining and sharing those great insights. Hopefully that was helpful to everyone who listened. We are going to post this on the help desk after as well. We've been recording this, so we'll post the conversation there just with some kind of key highlights and answers to the questions in writing as well, in case anyone wants to come read through it later. But again, if you have any questions specific to your business or a problem that you run into and you want some help troubleshooting, that's what we're here for. So the help desk is available at nowdigital.lambac.org. And you can submit a ticket, ask any questions, ask for help with troubleshooting, give a bit of background about your business so we can kind of recommend things specifically for you. Or if you're having trouble figuring out the site or how to do that, if you submit a ticket and just choose other as the category, then I can kind of help guide you or point you in the right direction as well with the help desk. All right, but thank you everyone for joining us. We'll wrap it up there. And again, nowdigital.lambac.org if anyone wants further help on any of this. Okay, thanks everyone.
Perfect.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day.